Yeah, welcome back. Welcome back. And we're going to move on now to video three. And, we had just come back from Virginia Beach. And, you know, Melanie had already, she's got the thought in her head, you know, pretty much from Virginia Beach that she had planned to lead mom to her demise. And she had spoke of this frequently. While we were in Virginia Beach, she had spoke of it a lot in the truck on the way there. She had a plan she was working on, and that her plan even included me. How did it include me? As you may wonder, is that Melanie was pretty loud. She was mean, to her parents. She yell and scream at dad and cuss him out, and she would do the same to mom. I mean, what you didn't see behind closed doors, nobody ever questions, and if somebody is good at manipulating other people, well, then they can pretty much have you believe whatever they want to believe, and then go on to do whatever they want to do. It's what makes them maniacal. It's what makes them twisted. Is their ability to convince others, everything is fine, and then we'll do whatever we want. Now that we've got you all fooled. That's what the twisted mind is thinking here. And she had everybody fooled. I mean, come on, man. 2 years you went and completely ignored me. I begged every one of you, to please lend a hand. And none of you did that. You know, so we come back from Virginia Beach, and she went and told Dad her little wishy-washy story. Of course he believed her. Oh yeah, you know, whatever came out Melanie's mouth, Dad believed. Dad believed it. No doubt, Dad believed it. You know, Melanie had to live in the house with her three kids all in her room. One room, three children. The children were of age where they knew what each other was, a boy, girl, crammed into a bedroom where she made the parents take them back and forth to school to feed them and to do everything else. I mean, mom and dad pretty much took care of Kenny and Amanda for 7 years. Melanie did not. Grandma and grandpa, mom and dad, they did. They took them back and forth to school when they wanted to skip, when they wanted to give problems. Mom and dad raised Kenny and Amanda, raised Melanie's kids. 7 years she was there. This was before Virginia Beach, of course, but anyways, we've come back from Virginia Beach and I received phone calls. I had received a number of different phone calls, some of them a little bit more weird than others. Phone calls which involved taking a trip up to Stonehenge, that involved signing somebody out AMA. For those of you who don't know what that means, that's against medical advice, meaning that it would be better for the person to remain in the facility than it would be for them to leave. They had medical problems, and that things could turn, bad, fatal. Melanie knew this. Melanie knew that mom had breathing issues. Melanie knew all of this. Melanie was right involved with all the paperwork, She knew what was going on and she knew what to tell people, and what to leave out. That way she knew if something that was wrong, she could use that to help her. And if y'all didn't know, then that gave her pretty much a perfect route to do is what she wanted to do. Mom was a problem to her. Melanie wanted to make sure she could manipulate everybody around Mom, make sure that she told everybody nobody was helping, but then to ignore all those people that were going to help. That's what she did. That way, she could show you all the giant burden that Melanie had, and boo-hoo Melanie, but that Melanie was making it so. Melanie was making that happen. Melanie wanted you all to believe of the burden. She wanted you to believe nobody was helping her. She wanted you to believe that, you know, that I did nothing. You know, when my mom and dad were fighting and my mom left New York State, she went to Florida. Melanie did not go to Florida with my mom. She did not go to Florida. She stayed in New York. She said, bye, see ya. That's what she said. And now she had controlled the entire house. Mom's gone. She's there with Dad. Could do whatever she wanted to do. It was awesome for Melanie. Melanie didn't go to Florida. Melanie stayed here. I went to Florida where I worked at an unnaturally young age. I worked for Gulf Southern Marine. I ended up in the hospital with severe burns. I was pretty messed up. I was trying to keep a roof over my mother's head and trying to help the cost of bills, since, you know, we just ended up in a state, of course, we've never been to. We just went there. We didn't call ahead. We didn't set up an apartment. We didn't make arrangements or nothing. We got on a bus. We rode to Florida. We got off the bus. We began life. That's how it happened. Wish I could say that there was more to that, but there's not. That's how it happened. Yup. We got out of Boston, went to a different state. We began life. Simple as that. No Melanie. I went on to live in Florida for quite some time. When Melanie did finally come to Florida, I believe it was my mother's second trip to Florida. And then this trip, she moved to a place called Buffalo, New York, and was living in a trailer. She was working at Martin Aerospace when Melanie decided to make her trip there. When Melanie got to Florida, Melanie wanted to skip school. She didn't want to go. She wanted to hang out with people. She wanted to go and have sex with the neighbors. She was a thief. You know, she was constantly shoplifting from stores. She was constantly in trouble. You know, my trip to Florida with my mom, I never had any criminal implications and nothing. I was never ever in trouble. You know, I stayed to what I was doing. I was very responsible. I took care of my mother. I took care of our house and home. I kept a roof over our head as the whole time we were in Florida. We were stable. We were in one place. When Melanie came to Florida, the whole stability thing, that went right up in smoke. You know, there were times that Melanie yelled and screamed at Mom down there and did whatever she wanted to do just to stomp out of the trailer, you know, and take off. This is how Melanie treated Mom. You know, this is in 40 years ago, before Virginia Beach ever happened, before Mom was ever sick. This is how Melanie was. When my mother was hit by a telephone pole from two people that were drag racing on Hillsborough Avenue in Tampa, that I brought my mother home here to New York State from Tampa, Florida. When I did that, I hitchhiked all the way up the East Coast with my mother, who was in a cast, on crutches. We had an entire trailer full of stuff. However, when we left that day to come to New York, we had 2 suitcases. That's it. Our entire life, years in Florida, now only in 2 suitcases. We left everything else behind, threw it all in a dumpster. We stood by that dumpster. We cried for a good couple of hours. We went in, we went to bed. The next day we got up, we began the journey back here. I brought my mother all the way from Tampa, Florida to New York State while she was in a cast, on crutches. And I brought her home safely. where she was able to recuperate, and eventually she was out of the cast. Melanie did nothing. She didn't do anything at all. Dad was very supportive. He was a great man. He allowed my mom to be in the house. They didn't sleep together in the same room, same bed. They slept in separate beds. They had a very, very nifty relationship, my parents did. Is that they wouldn't date anybody else. They wouldn't bring anybody home. They wouldn't share their bed with anybody else. They wouldn't share their bed with each other. The level of respect that they had for each other was nothing short of, nothing short of a miracle. I mean, they were awesome together. My father, my mother, they got along marvelously. My father was very happy, very grateful that I got her home safely, and that there were no further issues. He thanked me. So, with that little, memory, of course, tacked on to, as what I was telling you, we went to Virginia Beach and came back. Well, as we were getting closer and closer to the holiday season, Melanie made it more and more clear, that she didn't like the situation that she was in. She didn't like it. She'd made calls to me. She'd made, she had said stuff. I told people at this point what, she wanted to do. People laughed at me. Ha 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 ha. Melanie says you're a psycho. Melanie says that you're making all of this up. That's what she told you all? I begged and pleaded with everybody. In fact, nobody listened. The holidays came around, and again, nobody listened. Until that fateful night. A night that I will never, ever forget. Every night that I go to bed, I have nightmares. I have dreams that rock my world. They warp my daytimes. There's days I wake up that I've feel as if I didn't sleep at all. I wake up and feel like I'd run the Olympics. I was a track star while I was sleeping. My legs hurt, my shoulders hurt. This is how I wake up. And I woke up, with this horrible knot. This horrible knot, that was my heart. When I woke up that day, it was like I wasn't even me. It was like I was going through motions, as I was programmed to. And that was it. And that my day, I was spending a daze. I was. And every single night that I go to sleep, I relive that day. Every single night, I relive that day over and over and over again. And it never leaves my head. And that day, unlike any other day, I got up and I got in the car and I rode to the nursing home. It was all I could do to force myself into the car, and again, all I could do to force myself out once I got to the nursing home. And we walked in, and when we walked in, and Melanie, she says to me, well, Mom's this way. So we walk through the nursing home, and she takes me to Mom's room, and I walk in, I start talking to her, and she's got good color and talking to me. Knew who I was when I came in, asking me how I was. Asked me right off how Kyle was doing. She loved Kyle. She'd come get Kyle, and they would do events together. They would go over on Hall Ave, and they would have a little brush fire, walk down to the lake. She would take him down so he could walk in and get wet. Took him to Fort Ricky Game Farm. The memories are the memories are absolutely amazing. I love them. I thank my mom. I thank my dad for many, many, many great memories. You know. But when I walked in, I was talking to my mom, and Melanie walks off. You know, one minute she's standing there, next minute she's gone. And it was a good few minutes that I stood there. I talked to my mom, asked her how everything was going. She said, good. I'm feeling much better. You know, she sounded clear, was breathing pretty good, sounded pretty good. You know, and however she had, you know, the tremble in her hand, she was using like a weighted silverware and different stuff, which kept, you know, the level, her hand from shaking. And she was doing well with that, and she was following directions that people were telling her. She was doing very well. My mom loved life. She loved every bit of it. She loved to be outside. She loved spending time with the grandkids. She loved every bit of life. I assure you, my mom, she didn't want to die. She didn't want to die. She was a fighter. She was able to walk around. She wasn't bedridden like my father. She wasn't immobile like that. She could walk around. She could move around. She had her memory. She didn't have the dementia or nothing. You know, she had the trouble. That's about it. You know, for the most part, you know, Mom was, you know, as any elderly person would be, you know, with the medical or whatever. We all get it. But should we get the medical and then have to live with the fear that our children are trying to off us? That they're trying to kill us? That we've become an inconvenience to them? They have to do a little bit of work with us? So now we're bothersome, and for that, they want to kill us. Melanie had the thought to lead my mother to her death months before stepping into that nursing home that day. Months. She had the thought going all the way back to June, July. That faithful trip to Virginia Beach. That nightmare of a conversation in a truck that revolved around suicide and all of the horrible things that she had to do, and that she was going to lead our mother to her death. So that she didn't have to have the involvement anymore. She absolutely refused anybody's help so that she could make it appear that she was tackling everything by herself, so you would have that sympathy, so that you would feel sorry for her. And you all did. You all did. You played into it marvelously. Marvelously. Melanie should get an Academy Award for her acting, for her star-studded show that she put on for all of you. That she went ahead with a plan that she had all the way back in Virginia Beach, that she had been plotting and planning to do for months. Here I am standing in a nursing home, and I'm standing there on the very night that Melanie decided to execute that very same plan. As she signed our mother out of that nursing home AMA, with my mother begging me and asking that doctor to be left there. Begging. She was scared. She asked if she could come back. She asked if anything were wrong, could anybody help her? I asked the doctor, I says, can she stay here? Well, Melanie has all authority right now. I said, so Melanie can sign her out and just walk right out of here? There's nothing that you can do? And he says, no. No. Daryl, there's nothing we can do. She has all authority to do this. She's signing her out against medical advice. There's nothing that we can do. She says, hopefully your mother, she's around people and they won't let anything happen. If your mother has an episode, somebody will call 911. Somebody will help. Hopefully we'll be able to get her back in here and get her back on the road to recovery again. She says, Daryl, please hope for the best. He says, that's what you've got to do right now. I walked out of that nursing home that night with Melanie and with my mom, and an unbearable weight and a knot in my chest. I couldn't even hardly breathe when I left that nursing home. I couldn't think of anything else other than what was happening. That I was in some kind of this weird alternate reality. That I had begged and asked for people to help all the way up to this point. Nobody did. That now I am walking out of the nursing home. And that now the act is going to be made complete. And that there was nothing that I could do to stop it. That there was nothing that I could do to save my mom's life. Nothing. I could only get in that car and hope that something happened, that maybe somebody would be able to call and get her back into safety. I left that night. I went back to the house. I spent as much time as I could with my mom. While at the house, my mom asked me to take her back. To take her back to the nursing home. She didn't want to be there. I could show you pictures of her face. The look of horror that was on her face. Clear as a bell all night long. She was clearly scared for her life. She feared for her life. That fear caught in them pictures that were taken that night, they haunt me. My actions that night, Melanie's actions that night, they haunt me. I'm a haunted man. Every bit of it, I'm a haunted man. The first day she went to sleep, nothing. The following day she got up was Christmas. And I tried to put on my best smile. I tried to fake it. I tried. I couldn't do it. I couldn't fake it. I looked horrible. Eventually that day I was asked to leave. Melanie was afraid that, I was going to break down, something was going to happen, put her plan in jeopardy, I don't know. And I left. Later that night I got the phone call that my mother had passed away. When I went and talked to my father, as I was there in 2017 and 2018, end of 2017, all of 2018, most of, into 2019, I was even still living there. He was pretty sick then. But at the beginning of, the visit, we talked about that night, the night that Mom died. My father and I, we talked about that. As he told me that she was found with a leg over the bed, that she was trying to save herself. He told me that he heard conversations, that he heard somebody talk, and he was sure that Melanie was awake. He went back to sleep thinking that it was all under control, only to wake up the next day and to find out that his soulmate and somebody that he loved deeply, that she was dead. The phone call was made to me to tell me that she had passed away. I told everybody then, I told everybody before that what was going to happen. Nobody believed me. Melanie was able to walk my mother out of a nursing home, lead her to her demise. How do I know she didn't turn off the breathing machine? How do I know that she didn't make it so that my mother couldn't get to that mask? My father heard voices that night, heard another person talking, heard what he thought was Melanie talking, in fact. That she walked in there and told her mother that she was going to die. Stood there, right there, and watched it probably. She may have even stood right in the very same room that my mother was in and watched the life go out of her. That it's very well possible that she could have sabotaged the machine, that she could have made it so that that night that event was going to play out. And it did. My mother passed away. I told lots of people it was going to happen, and nobody listened to me. As far as I'm concerned, you all let it happen. I am not signing any of the paperwork. Right there's the will. Look at the second thing on that will. It says that I am not doing anything for my son Daryl. We didn't get along. That will was made in 2019. 2019. That's not the will that I had beaten into my head for my entire life. That's not anything that my father had talked about, said. My father was a pretty specific person. He fought in Vietnam, pretty level-headed. My father also knew that my sister and myself, we weren't good for each other. You know? He wanted the house sold. He wanted the money split. And he wanted us to move on. That's what he wanted. That's not what's happening. On my next video, I will be talking a little bit about the Bob Benson Law Firm. For now, I'm going to end this video. Melanie, I know that you're a killer, and that I know that you had something to do with Mom passing away. I know this. Know also that I am going to do what I can, as there is no statute of limitations to murder, is that I would like this case reopened, and I would like this re-investigated, as I would like some kind of justice for my mother. And I don't think that the person who got away with the crime should continue walking around out there. Every night that I go to bed, I dream of that day. It's a nightmare that never ends. I would really like the nightmare to end. I need really to get this out of my head, and that I will be talking to the proper authorities over the next few days concerning this issue. I'm going to end this video. Anybody who's watched it, thank you. Rest in peace, Mom, and rest in peace, Dad. And I'm sorry, Mom, that for what happened. That I really wish that I could make amends and make it better. I'm trying. I am only one person, and one person against the entire world right now. There is nobody on my side. There is no help. So, wish me luck. Bye.